Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And again, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to hang out with me and the rest of the folks that are joining in today. Today, we're going to be talking about the reporting processes. So, getting information out of PDS. And as you can see, looking on screen, our agenda, we're going to be covering how to find reports. So, choosing reports, choosing the right report to run. Um, Taking a look at predefined reports. Those are reports that are built into your system and they're ready for you to run at any time. Finding those reports and choosing which ones to run. And also exports. We're going to talk about exports, getting information out in a form of a CSV file, something that you can use to send to a mail house or use in a other database program to do further manipulation of that data. Running reports. When you run reports, you're always going to be taken into what's called a report wizard. That report wizard is going to walk you through choosing how you want the report to look, and then we call those styles. And then selections is going to be where you are choosing who you want to appear on the report. Okay, so styles, how it looks, selections, who should be on that report. So always keep that in mind. Um, there's also a new tool that I want to talk a little bit about. It's called a selection tool. And it helps you understand when you're building out a selection. It helps you to test it to see if you built the correct selection. I'm looking for all 18-year-olds in the city of Pittsburgh, right? Am I putting in the right selection? It will go out and test that and tell you, show you an example of what it looks like, who it found, and who it left out. It's a really useful tool, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about building reports. So taking an existing predefined report, copying it, and making it your own, putting it in your own report group, and then modifying it to however you want it to look so that it becomes truly your own custom report. We'll talk about that. We'll show you a few tips and tricks on working with some of those listing reports, turning those into export reports, and then adding brand new reports. So we're going to touch a little bit about bringing in brand new reports into the system, creating simple lists, exports, and other options that you have available as well. And then I also want to talk about some online resources that are extremely helpful. I would say after our session today, if you have time, go take a look to see what's out there. We have a full PDS video library on specific tasks within Church Office that I think will be very helpful for you. And I also put a link here for our PDS webinar, the end of year reporting and closing. That's a big task that happens at the end of the year. Luckily, this time of year, we don't have to worry about that too much. But right around that December, January timeframe, it's front and center on your mind. And there's a webinar out there to review and better understand that. Good thing about those videos, they're going to be out there anytime you need to get to them. So I just wanted to touch on that and talk a little bit about it. All right, so before we get started, let me go ahead and bring in the rest of the folks that are waiting to be admitted. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to just toggle back over to my Church Office program. And right now, again, we're just sitting at the home screen. This is where we always start. From the home screen, there are a couple different avenues that we can go to access our reports. Now, the main area, the quickest way is to get to our reports tab up on top. And then you'll see we have access to all the different reports in PDS. Now, the all reports section, let's go ahead and start there. That's an unfiltered view of every single report in PDS. Now, depending on your access level in the program, right, you can then have access to reports to get information out. Okay? Now, if you are an admin or you have access to multiple areas of the program, then you're going to be able to see from this list all the family reports, financial reports, member reports, personnel reports that you might want to run. I'm going to just scroll down this list here, and there are literally hundreds of reports that are pre-built into the system. Now, Using and sticking in on this all reports here for a moment, I want to then take a look at the top of our screen. You have a box here to show only favorite reports. Where that becomes helpful is through your daily process, you may only have to run maybe a handful of reports at any given time. So why not save those reports as your favorites and then only filter the reports that you need to see. So instead of seeing hundreds of reports in this list, only show the reports that you work with on a regular basis. In this case, those 5 reports. That's what this will do for you. There's a way to mark that report as a favorite, and I'll show you that in just a moment. You can also choose to show only your reports. So when you remember earlier, I mentioned copying a report and then making it your own. So when you copy a report, that becomes your report. You own that. Or if you add a new report, like an easy report, then you own that report as well. So you can choose to filter just the reports that you own. You also have an option here to click on Find. Now, Find's helpful because if you, let's say you know what the report does, you don't quite know the name, then you can start to type in some words to find that report. I'm just going to type in member quick. I know that's part of the name. When I click Find, it's going to identify and find all the reports that have member quick in the name. Now, you'll see up on top, we have a section called Most Recently Used. Anytime you run a report, it's going to put that report under your most recently used list. That way, if you're going back to that report frequently, maybe over the next few days, just choose it from the top. You don't have to go search and find it in the list. It will always be there. That's a running list, so the newer reports will end up on top. The older reports that you ran will head towards the bottom. When I click Next again, so it found the member quick in my recently used list, and it's going to go find the member quick under my listing reports. Okay? So just know it's going to find those. It's going to find 2 instances of that same report. It's important to know that that's actually the same report that it found. Once we find that report, and that happens to be the report we want, we can click on Close. Now that it's highlighted, we can go next and start our report wizard to start telling the report how we want it to look, and then at the end, who we want to be on that report. Okay. So that's the Find button. You can open all reports. I'm going to go ahead and click on that now. And all that simply does is that expands every single report category so that you can see every single report, okay? And then the opposite of that is to close all the reports. So just compressing it down to the major report categories. Before we had that Find button, this was the best way and easiest way to find the report you were looking for, because you go to your list and you're like, okay, I want a member report. You open that up. I know it's a listing report. I can open that up, and then I find my specific report. So a few different ways to find reports and navigate through our report menus. Now on the bottom of this list, we have a few different options. Now notice that we just have Add and Manage the user section reports highlighted. Delete and Copy are not highlighted because we haven't chosen a report that we own. So predefined reports, which is what we're looking at right here, are protected, meaning we can't delete them, we can't move them around, we can't do anything with them until we make a copy of them. And then once we make a copy, we own it, and we can delete it, we can move it around to different areas, we can even modify it to have it do an export or anything we want it to do. Okay, let's see. We've got 5 that need to come in, so let's go ahead and admit. Have a few late folks, but that's okay. We'll get everybody in, and we'll keep an eye on that. All right, so anybody that may have just joined in that was didn't make it before we started, I'm recording this session, so you'll be able to catch the beginning where we started talking about identifying reports. All right, so continuing on. So down below, you'll see that we have those options that we just talked about. Now watch this. I'm going to go ahead and click on Member Quick Report, look at that. Copy just became available to me. So now if I wanted to, I can make a copy of that report and then start to work with it. We'll get there. I'm going to show you what that looks like later on, but know that that's how we can easily copy any of our predefined reports. And again, remember, once we copy it, it's our own. We can manipulate it any way we want. We can add columns, we can delete columns, we can rearrange the columns, rename them. There's a lot of things we can do. All right, so let's go ahead and just stick with this member quick report listing here for just a moment. If you look over on the right-hand side, it's all reports are going to give us a preview of what that report looks like if we ran it. If you're not familiar with the report and you want to see what it might look like if you choose to run it, just click on that image and it'll display what that report should look like. Now, it's going to give you names and addresses that are not yours. It uses a sample set of data to quickly display data in these reports so that you can just make a quick determination if this is the report that you want to run. Okay. Now you might say, okay, it's got the name, address, and phone. And you're like, well, I really wish I had an email in there as well. Easy to do. I'll show you what that looks like later on. I'm going to hit close. But let's say this is a report that we want. Just go ahead and click on next to start that report wizard. Okay. Now the report wizard is going to always ask you or display for you some information about the last time the report was run. So if the last time you ran it and the layout and the selection is what you are going to be using, there's no need to click next, 3 or 4 times to run the report. You can jump directly from this screen, this first screen, to a preview. Just know that it's going to use those same selections that are listed here on this screen. Now, if we don't have any selection here, it's going to cast that widest net possible as if we haven't put in any selection at all. Okay? So know that that's what it's going to do. We can also jump directly to printing the report. So skip all the screens, all the wizard screens, go directly to print and send that to our printer. So you can do that. Just make sure that it's only going to use what's displaying here for your layout and your selections. If these are not correct, don't hit these 2 buttons because it's not going to give you the results that you're looking for. Just might mean that you have to go through the wizard. And then the last one is save directly to a file. So if you're running a report, and we'll just use this listing as an example. I'm running my member list, and I know that at the end, I want to save it as a PDF document. So if I want it to save as a PDF document, why would I want to watch that report run and look at the preview if all I want to do is work with a PDF document at the end? So clicking on save directly to a file will bypass that preview step where it displays the preview, and then you have to hit print, and then you'd have to choose save as a file. Just go ahead and tell it where you want it to go, and it will create that PDF for you automatically. And then the last one is an export list. Okay? So it can save your listing as a simple export file, if that's what you're looking for. Okay? So those are these buttons down below. Now, notice these buttons will be here throughout the wizard, so I can choose to run these at any time. I'm going to click next, and now we tell it the printer that we want it to go to. Now, all of you are on demand, meaning it's going to choose the printer that's available to you from PDS from on demand. So if you click on the drop down, you might have an option for default, or you can choose specific printers. Okay. Now, where that becomes important is if you have one printer that's available to you from on demand, but if you have another printer on your desk and you don't see it in this drop-down list, all you need to do is go back to your on-demand screen, go back to your printers menu underneath utilities, and just add that printer. As long as you have a printer driver installed for that printer on your Windows machine, then you should be able to add that printer from that printer's utility on demand. If you need assistance with that, just reach out to our support folks and they can help you out with that. All right, so choose your printer. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose my Samsung. Now notice that it's going to display any information that it's able to do. So if your printer driver has a duplex printing and it can flip that page over, you should have those options available to you on demand. Also, if you have additional trays, you can also choose where that output is pulled from. Okay, okay, let's go ahead and continue on. Now, it's also important to point out that on pretty much all of our reports, the layout screens are, the defaults for them have been optimized to print as best they can and as much information on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Some reports are set up as landscape mode, so it will automatically set to print in landscape mode if that's what the report is meant to do. So you have control, again, over all of those settings within our report wizard. So the listing screen here, you're going to see, gives us a few options. Now, this is where your styles are created. In PDS, you're going to have a default set of styles. So we have page styles. Now, because we're a listing screen, a listing report, we have options, style options for list reports. If I'm running a letter report, I'm going to have style options that would be specific to creating a letter, like inside address, salutation, letterhead. So I'll have those styles available to me because it's a letter report. Now, we can choose a default style if that works for us, or if we wanted to, we can take a default style and edit it, make it slightly different than what the default is, and then use that one. So for the page style, we're going to go ahead and keep that as normal format. Now the note box, all that simply does, I'll just go ahead and put in 24, 30, 24. Now what that's going to do is that's going to print on the bottom of every page on my list, right in the middle, training for 3024 at the end of our, the bottom of each page. That's helpful for when you're asked to run a report for a specific purpose. Go ahead and put that right on the notes and it'll print right there on the bottom. Just make sure that when you run it again, if you need to change that, or put something different in, that you put that in. Notice fields to print. We have a large button here, but we can't press it. It's grayed out. That's because this report's predefined, meaning we can run it, we can change the style and how it looks, but we cannot change what it prints out, the output, the field output. Now, the only way we can modify that is if we made a copy of it and made it our own. Down below, address format. Okay. It's going to choose that for us. We can choose a different if we want. We're just going to keep skipping down. Address information and margin style. So margin, again, remember I said it's going to set it to the best settings that will work for the report and your driver as well. Now you might need to make some adjustments to your margin style. So mine is set to the smallest margins, but you have options for 1 inch all around, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and options for booklet and letter margin. So listing screens, we want to use as much real estate on that 8.5 by 11 as possible. So smallest margin is what I'm going to set that as. Okay, I'm going to click next. And now we're on what's called the selection screen. So this is where we're going to tell the report who we want to appear on the report. So up to this point, we chose the report, we identified the how we wanted it to look, and now we're choosing what we want to be as part of the output. Now the first option that's always going to appear up on top is simple selection never saved. And what that simply means is if I choose simple selection and I put in a selection or a filter, then when I run it and I close the report, then that's it. That's a one-off selection. I'm not expecting or planning to use that same selection later on. But if this is, if you are planning on running this same selection, the same group of families or members at a later time, it's always best to save that report, that selection, and give it a name and give it a description that is clear on who it filters, on what that selection filters. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just show you the one down below in the middle. So this one's titled Male Members, October Birthdays, age 20 to 50. Okay, so that's just the name. But if I go to the Additional Selections tab, this should start to make sense. So I've been tasked with producing a list of all the male members. So that's member gender is equal to male, and their birthday is in October, and their ages is between 20 and 50. Now, if all I needed to find was all the male individuals, then I would just only put in line number 1. Or, same thing for if I only want to find the October birthdays, no matter if they were male or female, or 20 to 50, then I would put number 2. And I can use any combination of these to get that out. And again, this is just a simple example of identifying a group of members in our database. Now, it's important also to notice that we've got the all option selected up on top. Now watch, if I click on all, we have any or we have none. So if I choose any, it put ors after each line. Now, I've changed the function of this selection by doing that. So now, if I run this report, it's no longer going to find all the male individuals that are October birthdays between the age 20 to 50. It's going to find all the male members, or it will find all those members that are have the October birth date. So that could include different gender, and member ages between 20 to 50. It could include any age, because we have or, it's breaking up that tight relationship between each one of these lines. So if we want all those lines to be true, we set that to all. And now, in order to print, the member must match every one of these criteria lines. They have to be male, birth date has to be in October, and age has to be between 20 and 50. Now, look down below, we've got a box here that's unchecked to exclude rather than to include. If I chose this, that's going to first find all of the individuals that match all 3 criteria lines up on top. It's going to find them, and then imagine it finds these individuals and then tosses them out. And then it's going to give you everybody else. So that's what the exclude is going to do. Okay, it's going to give you the inverse of what we're asking for. So I'm going to uncheck that. Okay, and we could add as many conditions as we want to this list. This is just a real simple one to find those individuals. Now, also just want to point out, it can only find those with the birth date in October if we have a birth date on the member screen. We don't have the birth date, then we can't find it, and we might be missing out on individuals. And the same thing is true for gender, and the same thing is true for age. So if we don't have a birth date, we can't calculate the age. So it's important that that information sits on those member screens so that we can pull that data out. Let's go take a look to see what this report looks like. Now, keep in mind, we're running a member report that doesn't have the gender and age on it, so it's a little bit difficult to validate our output. So I'm going to show you how we can modify that report to give us a little bit more detail. I'm going to hit preview, and let's let it run. Okay, so it found look, about 11 or 12 individuals. So 11 individuals in our database. Okay, now we have to have a little bit of trust that our selection's correct, and that it's finding those individuals. So I'm going to click on back, And I'm going to show you this new tool called Review Selections that will help us validate the selection that we built. So if I click on Review Selections, okay, the first thing it does is it's going to tell us what it does. Right? We have the ability to see why members are matching our criteria, why we're skipping members, and then we can go from there. So let's click on the tab that says Matches Skipped. Okay, so right now we can see that we've got 2 that are printing in our first 100 records. Okay, so to quickly validate our selection, the default is to only look at the first 100 records in the database and then show you what it found on those first 100. So we had 11 that were found. It found 2 in the first 100 records. So we can increase that if we want to. And we can change this. So let me go ahead and show you. I'm going to change this to 1,000 records. And let's go ahead and run that again. So let's go ahead and show 1,000 records. And let's go back to our instructions. And let's go back to our match. Okay, so I found a few more. Okay, now looking at our list, what it's telling us is of the 11 that are printing, right, it found these records. And we're looking at just the Matthew Baker record right now. And then it's going to give us a reason on why Matthew is printing. So let's just take a close look here. So it's saying, first of all, it passed the quick selections. Now the quick selections is that very first screen on the selections on the bottom where we are automatically choosing active records only and active parishioners only. So it's also automatically using that as the first filter. So Matthew is active and he's a parishioner, so that's why he's appearing on this list. But then it's going a bit further. It's looking at each of those selection lines. And we can see that it found that he's male, it found that his birth date is in October, and it found that his age is 42, so he's within that age range that we found. And that's why he appeared on our report. If we wanted to see the next one, we can just look at each one. And this helps us understand, okay, our selection's working. Now, if it found, let's say it found someone outside the range, outside of 50, then that would tell us, oh, we did something wrong when building the selection, so we need to go back and make an adjustment on our selection. And then off to the right, this is just the selection again on why it's finding those records. So this helps us go back and kind of look at what the selection was without having to cancel out of this and looking at what we actually put in the selection. Okay. Now, if I want to see why it's skipping records, it skipped 549 members. So, okay, why did it skip James Aaron? Well, it skipped James because right here, his birth date is in June. He's male, so he passed that one, but his birth date's in June, so he's left off the list. So very, very powerful tool. I know that I would say building selection is probably one of the more frequent types of support calls that we get. Hopefully this will help you just kind of better understand when you're building a selection and you're testing it out, why it's working or why it's not working, and then give you the tools to make the adjustments that are necessary. And then we can look at the entire list. And this is just kind of looking at each one of those individuals. Now that was the skipped list. If we want to see the printed list, we can click then view. Actually, it's looking at the entire list, skipped and matches. Okay, so use this tool. Let us know how it works. Let us know if there's if we can make some improvements on it. The idea is we want to make it easier for you to run reports and selections, and I think this is a really helpful tool to get us to that point. I'm going to go ahead and hit close. So there's our report. Now, I had mentioned earlier the the fact that we ran the report, we couldn't really validate the output because we couldn't see gender and we couldn't see the month of birth. We couldn't see the year or their age. So why don't we do this? I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. Now, as soon as I hit cancel, it's going to take me right back to our report listing screen. I can now take this member quick report and I can click copy. Now, when I click copy, I can give it a name. So maybe this is the member, we don't need to click. So it's a member report. Well, let's just take the word report out. We don't need that either. But we can call this member age, gender, age, and not gender and age. That's good enough. The fact that the month of birth, how about birth month, age. There we are. That way it's very clear on what the output is. And then brief listing of member information, and maybe just do this here with that information there. Okay, so I'm the report owner. Okay, it can do this because I'm logged in as Mike P, and it's going to automatically make it private to only me. If I want to share this with my other coworkers, I can set that to shared. When I set it to shared, that means anybody else can run the report, but they can't change it. Okay, they can't put in new fields, remove fields from the report. I own it, but I'm just sharing it out. It's kind of like a read only. If I say public, then anybody can run it, anybody can change it, anybody can delete it. So just be careful how you share that out. Down below, I can also tell it where I want that report to land. Now, I already have a report called Mike's Member Reports, but I can easily create a new section. Mike's Member Training Reports. I'm going to click Build, and we'll let that go ahead and build out. Okay, so now you'll see under my member reports, I have a new category called Mike's Member Training Reports. And then if I open that up, there's my member gender, birth, month, age report. Okay, now it's an exact copy of my member quick list because I haven't done anything to that member quick list yet. I can now, because I own it, I can delete it. I can manage. I can copy it again if I wanted to. I can go into what's called advanced script and start making some changes at the report file level. And I can also, again, save it as a custom report if I want to share that with a neighboring parish. Okay? But I haven't done anything with it yet, so I think I need to make some changes to it so that it's doing what I want it to do. All right, so let's go ahead and click on member age, or we'll choose that report, and let's click on next. All right, so here's those same screens that we saw earlier. I'm going to skip through these to get to my layout screen. Now notice that modify button's it's selectable, it's not grayed out. So I can now change this information over here by clicking on modify. As soon as I click on modify, it's going to give me all my available member fields, and on the right hand side, the fields that I want to appear on the report. So I was fine with mailing name, but I didn't need the address book or phone book. So I'm going to select the address book and click the middle section. Just move that back over to the list. And I'll do the same thing with phone. So what I want to see now is gender. So we'll bring gender over. I'm going to click on member basic. Now, if I don't know where that is, but I know the name, I can click on find and just type in gender. Click on find, and it should find all the different gender fields. So there's 5 gender fields. It found the first one. That's the one that I want. Now, if I wasn't quite sure if that field was the right field, I can hover over that eye, and it's going to give me a little bit more detail about that selection. Now, I have multiple monitors, and that actually appeared on my second monitor. And what it reads when I click on that eye is member gender is the field. It's a fixed list, and the description is either male or female. So that's what's going to appear as far as the output goes. So I know that's the one I want, so I'm going to hit close here, and I'm going to bring gender and move that over to the right side. All right. Next thing I want to bring over is, so we've got date of birth. Okay. We've got age. Let's go ahead and bring over date of birth. So let's bring over age. Okay. I think I mentioned email too, because I think that's also helpful for us. So let's bring over our email. Primary email right here. So primary email is the first listed email on the member screen. So if the member has 3 emails, it's going to be that top email. Okay. So we've got mailing name, gender, day of birth, or date of birth. Okay. I meant to grab date of birth. So that was my mistake. Let's move day of birth over. We want date of birth. Let's see, over here, date of birth. That was my mistake. Let's bring that back here. So gender, date of birth, and age. Now, we also have additional fields like month of birth. If I wanted to bring in month, and it would show that October. Let's bring it over to just so you can see that. We'll put it at the end. Now, at this point, I can select on any one of these fields and change the name. So if I want to take out, mem, because that appears all the time on every field. So there's gender, date of birth, age, primary, month of birth. Okay. And I can change those completely to something else. Okay, so that's what I want. I'm going to click save. My field's updated. Now when I click next, I'm going to choose that same selection. I can click on it just to double check, make sure the setting is correct. And now I'll hit preview. And now this time, it's going to give me a bit more information, helpful information to me. So I got the name, gender, date of birth, age, email, and then the month of birth over here. Okay, so I just kind of threw that in at the end just so that you can see that. But it's doing exactly what we want it to do. Now at this point, I might say, okay, this is a great list, but I really need this in a CSV file. So what I would recommend that we do here, there's no need to go out and create a new export report. We can take our existing report and we can change it to an export report. Or we can copy it and then change the copy. That way we have a printed version and an export version. So it's entirely up to you. I'm going to hit close. So we'll just back out of the report for now. I'm going to go ahead and create an export, but I'm going to create a copy first because I like that printed version. In mine, it's going to be an export. So the copy is going to be an export. Everything else is going to remain the same. Maybe we can say here CSV format, and we'll drop it right under training reports. I'm going to build it. So right now, again, all we've done is we just made a copy. If I ran this copy, it's going to do, and it's going to look exactly like the listening report. The next thing that I want to do is when I click on it, I have this advanced script button here. I'm going to click advanced script, and I'm going to go down to my general report information, and I'm going to change the type from a list to an export, just like that, and click save and close. That's all I did. Okay, so made a copy of a report that I own, and I went into advanced script and I changed it from a list report to an export. Now, if I run it, I'm going to have options to save it as a CSV file. Let's go and click next here. Okay, so there's my CSV file. Let's go ahead and drop it into our training folder. That's fine. and we're going to call this member report, mail, mail, um, and then whatever the range was, I think it was 20 to 50. So page 20 to 50. Okay, just be as detailed as you can on naming the file as well, so that that helps you work with that file after it's created. Now, if I needed to, I can go to our modify, and I can make additional changes if I needed to. Maybe I don't need month of birth in there, so let's move that out, and then click save. Everything else is going to remain the same. So we'll click next. We'll go ahead and run through our report wizard. And now this time, instead of looking at a preview, it's going to create a file for us. We'll open that file up and we'll go take a look at it. So it's a CSV file. The default for CSV is going to be a opening up as an Excel document. So Excel's opening up on my other screen at the moment. Let's go ahead and bring that over. And there it is. All right, so let's make that a little bigger for everyone. So you've got your mailing name, gender, date of birth, and now we can really start to work with this report. Okay, it's a CSV file. Very easy. We took an existing report that was our member quick report. We copied it. We changed the fields to the fields we wanted to. We made that our own list report. We then made a copy of that list report, and we changed the fields. We also changed the type from a list to an export, and we ran it using that same selection that we built earlier. Okay, so just like that, it's giving us exactly what we need. All right, so hopefully that was helpful to you all. I'm going to hit close here, and we're going to stop here for the moment. I just want to take a quick look at our agenda item. So we talked about running reports. We talked a bit about styles and selections. We looked at the new selection tool, building reports. Okay, we talked about copying reports. We haven't talked about adding reports yet. So I do want to spend a little bit of time there to show you all what it looks like when we want to add a report from scratch. So we'll take a look at that next. All right, so back over to PDS. Now we happen to be on a member screen, but again, we can choose any report type that we need. Let's go ahead and let's choose a listing report, or I'm sorry, we're going to choose a family report. Now, if I just choose the family report group, what that does is that puts me in a filter. So when I click on add, it's going to walk us through adding a family report. Okay. I'm going to click add, and these are the different options that we have for building reports from scratch. So we have a listing report, a letter, email, text report. We can create labels, envelopes, a form, an export, or a custom report. Okay. Now, the custom report would be, remember I mentioned the example where you can create a report and share it with a neighboring parish? So the neighboring parish, the parish that created the report would save that report as a custom report, and then could email it to you, and then you would load it in using the custom report button. Let's go ahead and start simple with a list report. Now this list report is going to be a family simple list. How about we say basic info mouse. Okay, so basic family list with basic information along with the number of members in their family. We can choose a new selection. We can choose different groups. We'll drop this under Mike's family reports. Click build. All right, so now the difference between the report that we're building now and the ones that we were working with earlier is that we have a blank slate to create and bring over whatever fields we want. We can bring over any fields that are in the family fields or in the member fields. So we have we can bring over any information that we need. All right, so typically what we'll do when we're building out a family report is we want to bring over the envelope number. That's always helpful for us. So that's our ID envelope number field. We'll click on that and bring that over. The mailing name is always helpful for us. So let's go ahead and bring over mailing name. That's family mailing name. And we'll just keep on going. So what else do we want to bring over? We can bring over address and other information. If I'm not so much interested in address, but I want to bring over their city state, I can do that. Now city is going to bring over city state. Okay, that's the city, comma, state abbreviation. If I wanted to bring over just the city, it would just be city only. Okay. All right, and let's see, how about that email again? So just like our member records, we have primary email for families. We'll bring that over. And how about number of members? Let's bring that one over as well. So number of members right here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And let's go through that wizard. Okay. Now it's a listing screen, so we can control what it looks like, the listing layout. If I wanted to, I can click on modify and change the fields that I just brought over, or I can leave those alone. So address format, what we're doing here, and this is going to be true for a default for any report that prints address, is the way the program works is if there's an alternate address for a family and we're within the time date range to use that alternate address, it will use that. If that family has a mailing address that's different, that's filled out, and then that should be different from the physical address, we'll use that mailing. Else, we'll back and we'll use the street address. So that's the process that it finds those. When we tell it to print unlisted address, phone, or emails, you'll see it will bring over that information, or if it's unlisted, we can choose to not print or print X's in those. Okay. So since this is an internal report, we want to print that information that's unlisted. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to click next. Now, notice I now have selections for families that were not available to me on my member report, because these selections are specific to families. And the same thing is true for like financial reports as well. But I can use any family selection on any family report. Same thing is true for members. Same thing is true for financials. So once we build it, it's going to be available to us for that same group of program areas. So we've got families in Phoenix or Mesa. Okay. Let's go ahead and select that and take a look at our additional selection. So this one's built a little bit different than the last one. It's looking at Fam City is in the list, and we're looking at Mesa or Phoenix. Okay. Now again, we could click on that review if we weren't sure. We can copy this. So maybe, hey, we like the way this works, but I want to do a little bit more with this, and I want to copy it. So I'm going to hit copy. And there's the copy. We're now pointing at the copy. I'm going to change the name. And I'm going to call this, so families in Phoenix, or what is it, Mesa? With 5 or more members, okay? Because we want that number of members. So we're now looking at 2 different cities, and are they in, do they have 5 or more members? Let's click save. So far we just changed the name. We haven't changed the function of what that selection does yet. Matter of fact, if I ran it now, it's only going to give me families in Mesa or Phoenix. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next field that we want to bring in, which is going to be number of members. So we know that lives under the FAM basic, and number of members a little further down. Now, if I know the name of the field, I can just start typing it in right now, and it will take me to that section. Okay? So if I type in N, right there, number of members. Okay? And we want to choose is, let's see, greater than or equal to. And we want to choose 5. Now, I'm not done with the selection yet. It's an OR selection, meaning if I go and run it, it's going to find me all the families that are in City of Mesa or Phoenix, or all the families that are in that have 5 more members that might be out of Mesa or Phoenix. So I need to add an AND to this. I'm sorry, an all, which will put an AND. Okay. So now it's looking at any families that are in Mesa or Phoenix, because that's what this in list will do. And then only those that have the 5 or more members. So big time saver, hit that review selection. It's going to look at your first 100 families and tell you why it's finding the records. Okay. So there is the first one, true because Fam City is Mesa. Okay, and true because they have 11 members. So looks like my selection's working. Okay. 9 times out of 10, if your output doesn't look like what you're expecting, it's most likely going to be that selection that you have put in. So always go back and look at your selection. Use this tool to help you identify if you've made a mistake on your selection. Okay. So just looking at, let's see, Mark Pickerton, he's in Phoenix, and he's got 6 members. So perfect. This is exactly what we want. So I'm going to hit close. I'm going to now hit preview. And here should be our list. Now, when you're building out a listing report, some of these fields require a lot of characters. If I had added, 1 or 2 more columns, I might start to see my columns get compressed, and I'm not able to see all the information. That's when you might want to consider flipping it to landscape mode. Another thing that you can do is look at city. See how we have all this extra space after city, we have all this extra space after primary email. You could always click on back, go back to the report, click on modify the fields. So what was it, city and email? So if I click on Fam City down here, I don't need all 30. Maybe let's drop that down to 20 characters. I don't need 65 characters. Let's drop that down to 40 and then click save. All right, now when I click next, and I'm going to run that same report, we should now see less white space after the data on those 2 fields. Okay. Looks a little better. And what that might also do is if I have another 1 or 2 columns that are getting compressed, that's going to start to open up and make that report a little bit more readable to me. So you might consider doing that as well. All right, so let me take a look here at some questions that might have come in. Bear with me here. Let's see, how can I add, Kevin's asking, how can I add a report, in a report, a condition to print the last time a parishioner contributed and the last date they did? Okay, that's a good one. Now we might not have time to build out a report to show that, but what you're going to do is, obviously that's a financial report. So go ahead and start with your financial report group. And let's go ahead and go to our listing screen. And that's history that we're looking at. So if you think about it, if we're looking at the last gift and date, that's looking at the history grid. So what we're going to go look at is fund history. But we want a little bit less detail than fund history. So how about, let's see here. How about one line? Let's see if we trying to see if there's a good one here that we can use. Volunteer, online with total activity. Well, really that history is what we want, but that's a little bit too much information. We want a simple list. Let's keep looking here. Now, if I wanted to, I could click on find and type in the word history. Looks like there's only one. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and just create one. So let's start with one line history, a one line family with total. Basic, 1 row per record. Okay, that's always helpful to start there. Let's copy it. Let's give it a name. With last donation. And we can do this just so that we have a proper description. It's going to land in our financial easy reports. Let's hit build. Okay, so once that copy's made, I can now go in and change a few things. So how about under modify? So we don't want that grand total anymore because that's not the field we want. We want to look at history. So let's go ahead and just collapse all of these fields. Let's go down to our funds. And we know that we want to go to fund history. So fund history is right here. And we've got date and we've got, let's see, let's bring in date. And we have amount. Let's bring over amount. But we need a little bit more. We need to be able to tell it like the last gift. So that lives under, I believe it's a calc field. So at the calc fund hist, moving down. It's not there. How about fund info? I can never find it. So click on find, last. See how many it finds. 17. Okay, not too bad. Let's click next. Head last, spouse last. And I'm just kind of scrolling through here real quick just to find that last payment date. A lot of last years. Okay, so there's our last rate. Nope, okay, we're getting close. Last total, okay. Last rate, last total, different last name. Okay, so it didn't find it. Maybe last wasn't the proper one. So let's go ahead and just kind of go back here. And I'm going to go back to our fund totals. Fund totals. And let's go down here. First payment. Ah, there it is. Okay. I was looking for the word last. It's latest. So we've got latest payment amount, latest payment date. So we're going to bring those two over. Okay. And now that I'm thinking about this, we don't need the history pieces because we're going to get what we need from these fund totals latest amounts. So let's click that. Just moving these fields back to the list. Okay. Let's take out phone list. Add an address block. We don't need that. There. Let's click save. And let's click next. Okay, now the next thing we need to tell it is what date range do we want to look at and what funds do we want it to look at, okay? Let's go ahead and stick with Fund 50 for now. Actually, I don't know if I have enough data in Fund 50, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this wide open. But let's look at for 2023. Let's look at that year. And I'm just going the entire calendar year of 2023. Okay, so January through December, all these funds. Don't worry about the overpayments part. That's going to only come into play when we're calculating balances. Click next. All right, so we built the report. We haven't yet told it who we're looking for. So as far as the who we're looking for, we might want to say, let's skip families that don't have any funds. And let's also look for any families who have something under their grand total paid, like they've given us something. So let's click on additional selections, but we're going to choose simple here. Keep skip. Under additional, we're going to look at fund total, grand total paid. So fund totals right here, and we're going to choose the grand total paid is greater than 0. That way we're only finding those who gave us something. Is greater than 0. Just like that. Now, if I want to save that, if that works for me, I can always save it. I'm just going to go ahead and hit preview right now, and let's see what we get. Okay, it's clearly finding records. Now, remember, I put in 5 funds with 2023 year, so that's going to be the output. So now it's not going to tell me what fund this was because I asked for 5 funds. Now, if I just ask for one fund, Fund 50, let's say, then I'll know that that payment date and amount is for Fund 50. But here's a real quick example so that you can all see what we're doing. So it found the record, it found Jeff's last payment date, okay, and amount. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful for you all. It's real simple run through on reports. Reports can be quite complex. I think if you walk through the wizard and you walk through the selection building process using that selection tool, it's gonna get you very far. But always know that we're here to help. So make sure that you reach out to our support folks when when you need our help. I'm gonna hit close here. I'm going to go back to our document real quick because I did want to point out that we have a couple different resources. When I click on this video library, I'm going to go ahead and click on the video library link. And this is just on our online help. So when you go to our online help and you go to our training section called PDS Video Library, you all have access to these videos. I wanted to show you the first one called Reports and Selections. So they're about anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes long, depending on the content. But you'll see here that we have reports on common reports, listing, letter, exports, selections, how to build some simple selections, additional selections. So part 1, part 2, part 3. So it goes from a simple one, and then we add to it to make it a more complex selection. Custom fields, and we even talk a little bit about our advanced report writer. So for those that are adventurous enough to create your own advanced report, we have some videos that will kind of get you in the right direction, and we'll show you how to access the documentation if you wanted to create your own advanced report. The other document that I wanted to, or video resource that I wanted to show you was that webinar. Again, we're pointing to our end of year section for our help center. And under here, right here is our end of year guide. So this will walk you through some of the things that you want to focus on and think about in December, January timeframe. It's about an hour video, and it'll go through the process of running your end of year donor substantiation reports, and as well as setting up your new funds or setting up your existing funds for the new year so that you can start accepting those donations in the new year. All right. So, all right, Kevin, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you everybody for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And I want to wish you all a great rest of your day. As always, I appreciate your time that you spend here with me. We have one more session to go. I can't believe we're almost finished, but you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.